Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome on this Saturday afternoon. How are we doing, guys? Today we have Arnav Sati, who is a young, energetic bloke who's out there for a good run for a while now. And we've been friends on Facebook, but we're talking to each other in person via digital mode for the first time. So, without doing much ado, Arnav, welcome on the show. Nice to have you.
Thank you, Vipulbhai. Thanks for inviting me.
Right. How are you doing?
Yeah, not bad. It's a bit rainy outside, but look, that's what you expect on weekends these days.
Yeah, we're in Melbourne.
Correct.
Right. So, let's start this journey. Tell us about yourself.
All right. Look, I'm actually. Mhm,
And start
mhm.
from the inception, start from the
Mhm.
start, and you can continue going through the journey. So, yeah, tell
Okay,
us about yourself.
cool. All right. So look, as people know, my name is Arnav. I came to Melbourne in 2001 as an international student. Did my TAFE for the first year, then did my bachelor's in computer science for another 2 years. Then I actually drove taxis for like at least a year. Then I ventured myself into a IT job, and since then I've been in IT job for a good time. In total, it would be nearly 20 years next January, 11th of January, when I
Wow.
would be in Melbourne for last 20 years.
Nice.
So that's actually what's been how actually I've traveled. Yep.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, and look,
And
sorry.
yeah, um, when you came 20 years ago and today, there would be a drastic change. How were those first few years challengeful? What did you go through?
Yeah. Look, all right. So look, it's actually going down a bit more, bit into memory lane, but look, it's always nice to visit. Everyone's got some fond memories or sweet memories of, some call it, struggle, some call it adventure, some call it just normal life. So look, pretty much from my perspective, those were the initial years, like 2001, 2005.
Mm.
Those initial 4 years, they actually were the initial years, where it actually made me the person I am today. The
Okay.
reason being, I was only 18 when I came to Melbourne. So I've never
Hmm.
worked in India. I've never attended a college in India, you know. So and from my perspective, I came from I'll say, pretty much a very well-to-do family in India, right? So the very first time, not very first time, like when I actually first, traveled in Melbourne in bus, that was pretty much my sixth or seventh time ever in my life sitting in a bus, right? So it was more like from a different sort of a background and a culture, it was more like offshooted into a place where no one knew me, which was a blessing because that was what actually excited me about studying abroad was I needed to be in a place where no one knows me, and I embark on a journey which I can say it's completely mine. So that was the main reason why I actually came to Melbourne, in the first place. Put it this way. Uh, then it was more like the initial years in like the very first year in TAFE was actually a bit challenging because you adjust to the surroundings, you adjust to the weather. Someone did mention to me that it snows in Melbourne, and at that time, I was internet wasn't there that much, so my expectation from Melbourne at that time 2001 was it actually snows in Melbourne pretty much 6 months, 4 months in a year, right? So that actually, so when I came here and I was like, I was told, by peers, look, it doesn't snow in Melbourne. And I was like, ah, shit, all right. They said, like, you got to travel 300, 350 Ks of sea snow, so that was okay, but look, as a young lad of 18 years, the world was mine to actually start my journey. So that's what happened. And then I actually, look, I worked pretty much in Crown, I've worked in Crown as a kitchen hand, pretty much as graveyard, doing graveyard shift at Margot's and at IDs. So I've worked in Crown pretty much for my first year. And look, I've got fond memories because, like, there were very few students at that time who used to, volunteer or not volunteer, take their hands up to say we're actually okay for a graveyard shift, because graveyard shift used to actually start at 7 in the evening and finish at 3 in the morning. and then 3 a.m. to 5:20 I remember was, or 5:27 was the first train to Sunshine. So for 2 hours, I actually had to wait at Flinders Street Station. And that time, Flinders Street Station was not as if it was as it is now. We just had normal platforms, wind blowing left, right, center. And so it was like, but look, like it depends on how you take, how you actually enjoy it. Like, because it was my first year, I actually used to do poetry that time. So like, an 18-year-old, pretty much taking the best of the time in the morning and doing a poetry for 1 hour in the morning. So look, so that's how I used to do it. And then there were some times when I actually had to basically, finish my work in Crown at like 3 o'clock in the morning, take the first train around 5:30, reach my place. I used to live in Sunshine that time. Reach Sunshine at 6 o'clock, and then leave, like have a very small sleep and leave around 8:30 to reach my uni TAFE for 9 o'clock, because TAFE are different to universities. So in TAFE, if they have got 9 to 4 or 9 to 5 style of of a timetable, you've got to attend to that timetable. So the very first year, there were 2 3 days, when I used to work, pretty much without much sleep, which was completely different to where I was back home. My average sleep was like 10 hours a day. Yes, so it was a drastic change, but look, it actually for good, I will say. So that is actually what that was my first year in Melbourne. Then I actually happened to go to Victoria University. I
Mhm.
studied in Victoria University for 2 years, and I did my bachelor's. Um, University was a different experience than TAFE, because you can select classes based on your timetable, things on those lines. And because in India my curriculum was pretty okay in year 12, both TAFE and universities was like studies were okay. Like, I really didn't actually have to struggle much to be a studious. And look, I've got you know I did around 26 subjects in university, and I've got high distinctions in 24.
Mm.
So I actually had some good run with my studies at Victoria University. There are some subjects which is like stats, and I got around like 97, 98 out of 100 in stats, which was supposed to be the toughest subject. So that was a good thing. One other fond memory I've got of Victoria University is pretty much in my last year, I used to tutor the same students I used to attend class with. So I used to attend the class at like 10 to 11 or 10 to 12 with, a few students from, pretty much from, the subcontinent. And
Mm.
then I used to actually help them, and I used to tutor them the same thing, which
Mm.
I was learning with them at 10 o'clock that morning. So, so it was, so it actually was well, let's say it wasn't bad. It actually, like, the college life which I had out here was, I'll say, was bloody good. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Teaching them would have strengthened your own learning as well.
Oh yeah, look, teaching and learning, it's actually like, it's actually a non-stop cycle, always in your life. As long as you are eager to learn,
Mm.
there's always room for improvement. You know,
Mm.
I
Mm.
believe the moment you actually stop your learning, that is
Mm.
the time when when there's no literally no room for improvement, and that's I believe the time when you become stagnant in your life.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was basically my journey pretty much in my college days.
Mm.
Uh, then uh, then actually actually happened to come into Texas because my dad back home actually went a bit sick,
Mhm.
and pretty much my initial plan was I'll borrow some money from my dad when I was when I would be in my last year of my graduation, and I'll start up an IT business out here. So that
Mm.
was my that was my intention. But then by the time that time arrives, there were some lows in my life, like family life, from financial perspective. So I actually had to happen to do a job where I was actually supporting my family back home. So that actually happened pretty much for like I'll say 2 years, 2 years,
Mm.
1.5 years, and then everything was okay. Yeah,
Mm.
but I ended up working in a job, whereas ever like in my life ever I've never thought that I will ever work for anyone. It was always like, you know, I would actually do my own business, my own ventures, and pretty much more like an entrepreneur. But I think
Hmm.
like life had different plans at that time for me.
Yeah.
So, and pretty much like for the first year, like after completing my degree, I actually had to do taxis for a year and a half, and then I actually got my first IT job from taxis.
Ah,
So
okay.
yes, so I actually had a branch manager for a big IT company in Melbourne, and it's actually another fond memory. I actually took him from the office that used to be in Richmond at that time
Hmm.
to a hospital for submitting a tender. And
Hmm.
in next 7 days, I was actually the analyst officially with his company, going with him from the office to
Hmm.
that hospital
Hmm.
doing an assignment.
Wow.
So my transition into IT was pretty much like right place, right time. Obviously, like I had my credentials, which were actually solid credentials, like 24 I distinctions out of 26 wasn't bad,
Hmm.
and I'm actually a quick learner. So what was put in front of me, I was actually able to learn, adapt, and actually deliver.
Hmm.
And that's how I actually started in IT.
Hmm.
And and then there's another story. What actually happened was after I did my after I was like 1.5 months into the job, working as a junior analyst. Pretty much more like an apprentice with someone. Uh,
Hmm.
my senior person actually came, so the senior business analyst came, and he said, "Look, I'm actually leaving." And I asked him like, "All right, so whereabouts are you going on vacation?" And he was like, "No, I'm actually leaving the company." So my transition from a junior analyst to a proper business analyst was like less than 3 months. So I had like some, and since then I've had some good wins in my career, right? So actually, pretty much in IT, I've worked in domains covering, Department of Justice, Transport, Health, Department of Human Services, Education, Telco, Utilities, Super. I haven't touched bank as yet, but apart from bank, I actually have touched pretty much a lot of domains in my professional life,
Hmm.
and that's where I've got a I consider myself actually having a sort of a generic understanding of a lot of other places, how they work, being involved, with their core way of functioning. In a similar manner, like when I was actually a student, I was working. I worked as a kitchen hand, worked in 7-Eleven,
Hmm.
uh, tick to tick. Shit, I can't even remember now where all I worked with. That's funny. Yes, yes. So look, so worked on those jobs. Yeah, and then it was more like been in IT pretty much since 2006. So it's literally been how much 14 years now. Yeah,
Hmm.
look, so that actually was my journey, and is actually my journey, and I like, pretty much over last 3.5 4 years, being involved in local politics, or I'll say advocating for the local area. And now the journey is taking a next turn. So it's more like you know being an international student, being a young migrant. Did my like excelled in excelled, or did my gained my skilled qualification, and now moving on to pretty much something where I can give it back to the community. So
Beautiful.
that's pretty much in a nutshell the journey has been.
Yeah. Before we talk today and a little in time, going back in a little past where the journey started, when you thought of migrating to Australia, what was the reaction or what were the reactions from family? Push and pull or
Yep.
support or resistance or how was the scenario by then?
Yep. See, there's actually I'll actually go a bit more back than that. So what actually
Mm.
happened was I actually wanted to be always in the army, right? So I actually
Oh.
wanted to join army,
Hmm.
pretty much in India. So what I did was in my year 6, I actually tried for army school, and then
Hmm.
year 8 in India, there's actually RIMC, Rashtriya Indian Military College. I
Hmm.
applied for that,
Hmm.
but you know I got selected through the written exams and things on those lines. But then, pretty much from the state which was, Uttar Pradesh, there was a quota system. So I lagged around because no one else from my family was actually in army.
Hmm.
So, so after that time, and I studied really hard, for that exam. Like there was only like 6 people clearing out the written exam, out of at
mm,
least, I'll say, 5,000 students appearing, and I'm talking
mhm,
like year eight.
mhm,
So it was more like a very selective exam, and I was through it. But because of not having someone from army background in my family, I actually lost on the seat at that time. So after that, it was more, I've actually made myself clear to my family, look, after my year 12, I would actually be going abroad. So in my family, or even my friends knew after I was in my year eight, that this fella is not going to stay here after year 12. So look, my family was, they actually knew what I actually thought about doing, after my year 12, at least for a couple of years. And and look, my father and my mother, like, they were like, purely, supportive of what I was actually doing, because I wanted to be at a place where I could just explore things, be my own, away from the family, and just learn the basics of the life my own way, rather than the basics being told to me how things are done. you know
mm,
I
mm,
haven't been a rebellious in my student life, but I've been
mhm.
a naughty student, you can call that. So a bit of everything, put it this way.
Right.
Yeah, so look, I actually had like all the support from family. Look, uh, pretty much pretty much majority of my fees also came from India. Look, so I wasn't too stressed when I was doing my education out here. So I used to earn part-time jobs, used to earn well, used to spend on myself, my friends.
Mm,
So yeah, so it was all about, so that's where I was talking to you about, where in my year three, like, third year of college, the life took a different turn, because if I would have known something like that, I actually was very extravagant in my first or second year of college,
mm, mm,
because going low on money or going less on something was something which I have never seen ever in my life before. And it actually happened at the very year where I'm supposed to graduate, and my
mm,
intention was actually to start an IT business, which never actually happened at that time.
mm, mm, mm.
Yep.
So, yes, just quickly again, sorry, because you've drawn us like you wanted to join army. Why was that?
Look, that's actually a good question. There's actually always, there's always one main reason to join army, that is to serve the nation, right? So,
Mm,
so every child, actually, when they actually think about serving the nation,
mm,
they actually think about, joining army, right? So that was one part. Uh,
yes.
as a student, as a young child, I actually quite, like, I was always into my extracurriculars as well. So when I used to say what army schools or schools actually offer as part of your extracurriculars, like horse riding, paragliding, paratrooping, parasailing, things on those lines,
Mm,
I quite used to like those activities, right? So that was, my secondary reason for joining army. And then the third reason was, actually, I was actually in, I used to practice karate. When, like, I've actually done karate from my, I'll say, from my year four to year eight or nine. So I've actually learned karate for like 4 years.
okay.
So so once you actually want to serve the nation, you like extracurriculars, you
Mm,
actually do karate, things on those lines. So
mm,
army becomes,
mm,
for a 12, 14 years old person, like, child, it actually becomes the
mm.
next possible career option. So that was my reason for joining army.
Nice, nice. Now, coming back to Australia, when you started your journey
Mhm.
in your TAFE and in Crown or in the workplace, you would have made few friends, right?
Yep.
Which is a very normal kind of thing.
Mhm.
How many of them, not an exact number, but like few more, one or two, they're still your good best buddies to
Mhm.
kind of fall back on? Are there any, or
Oh
they're
yeah,
with the
yeah. Look,
passage
yeah,
of
look,
time?
look. No, I think, look, look. When I actually joined TAFE, I was pretty much the only one who was 18 years old. Then
Mm-hmm.
the next person up was like 22 years, and then the next person up was like 28 above. So I was actually sitting in a class where majority of the students were actually like 10 years elder than, to me. But actually, pretty much, they were more like seniors. Like, if I would have done a normal college in India, they would
Mm-hmm.
have been, college pass outs by that time, based on, whom I was studying with. So there was a bit of an age gap between, in my type, when I was, 18, and others were like 24 or 28 or, 30 plus.
Mm-hmm.
But when I actually moved to college, which is Victoria University, for 2 years, that actually was the time when I made plenty of friends. And look,
mm,
I'm still mates with with pretty much majority of my friends. So
mm,
I actually have, put it this way, I'm actually in touch with pretty much majority of my friends. So we still talk. We still share things. We
mm,
still help each other in our highs and lows. That's what friendship is for. So it's all going good. Yep.
yep, yep, yep. Um, Fast forward or moving a little forward, as you made a mention that you worked pretty much a good um variety of function or companies or the business sides
Domains.
or
Yep.
activities were happening. Which was one particular place where you loved working, like even if you are supposed to do today, even if you have to step down onto your kind of level, but you would want to still do
Mhm.
that? Which was that one function or one area that you loved working, or you still would love to work?
See, that's actually a very very good question, and I will answer it a bit vaguely though, because what actually happened was after my transition from a junior business analyst to a normal business analyst in 3 months' time, after my first project was in health in a hospital, and I really loved that project because it was more like first time ever implementing what you have learned in university. Talking to the clients, talking to the business, talking to the stakeholders, making informed decisions for them. So that was a very good learning cycle for me. For that 3 to 4 months of that project. But
Mm,
after that, I've pretty much more like a sort of a troubleshooter in IT projects, right? So this is
yeah,
actually what I say in my IT life or in my work life is, if you
mm,
actually have got the most stuffed up project, give it to me, I'll get it fixed.
mm,
So I actually quite like challenges from, like, in work. If you give me something which is very routine, I'm the
mhm,
sort of person who will get bored.
yeah,
So I quite like challenges, going out of ways to find out how something could be done, a solution can be made, how it can actually have a business benefit. So that's why I said, I'll actually give you a very vague answer for your specific question, because from my perspective, you know, every domain which I worked with had a lot to offer. A
mm,
lot of knowledge, a lot of process knowledge, a lot of knowledge around how things are done. You actually
mm,
understand when you work in specific domains, and
mm,
especially when you're working on, a bit of a troubleshooting projects. Your specialty is you go in, quickly learn the domain knowledge,
mm, mm,
get as much from the stakeholder as possible, identify a problem, get to a solution, and then implement it. And then you've done the solution, people are happy, you move
mm,
to your next project. you know
yeah,
so so actually every, like, put it this way, on an yearly basis I do around 10 IT projects. And that's been a rate for last, I'll say, at least 7 8 years. So look,
no,
as long as it's challenging, I just like it. I actually love
mm,
solving problems this way. And I think, look, that could be the other reason, like, while we're talking about, is why I moved more around advocating for the area, because one part of my life was like, problem solving or providing solutions, and the other part of my life where it was local issues,
mm,
there was no advocacy whatsoever. So I think that's why when I actually started, that was pretty much the main reason of me, starting as an activist, or doing advocacy for my area.
mm.
Sorry, I'm linking it back, but look, it all changed,
No,
and that's why, I'm just being honest.
yep, yep, yep. I think the way I read is problem solving, and the parts related to problem solving is first trying to understand or know what the problem is, and then work some solution. So that's, and then there are always new and new problems which are coming. So that I think is getting your flavor. Uh, Take up a challenge, take up a project, work on it, move on, give a solution, and move on. Right?
Yes, I would. Yes, I would actually. Yes, I would actually say so. Yep. In a nutshell. And the other part is, look, there's a bit of a research that actually happens as well, because
Mm,
whenever you pick up a project or pick up a domain, it is usually new to you, right? So you got to learn a lot of things in a very short span of time,
mm,
and then identify the problem, then provide a solution, and then look. One good thing which I've got is I've been in IT for, like, how much, 14 years now. I've never
mm.
had a failed IT project. So that's one thing which I'm really proud of.
Amazing.
As a working in IT, where 40-50% projects are always failures or they get extended, things on those lines. I've never had a failed project ever in my belt, so I'm really, like, from a professional life, I'm really happy about that, and I really boast about it all the time.
Actually, you answered my next question was supposed to be that. Was there anything which was kind of challenge and you couldn't get through? But it's good to hear that the success rate is around.
Yeah, look, see, the thing is, as long as you have got the right information with you, you
Mm,
know and it's logically separated, or there are logical distinctions between the information, you can
mm,
make an informed decision, like, and that thing goes to your normal average day-to-day life. It
mm,
actually goes to your work life, whatever you do in your life,
mm.
if your decisions are informed and backed up by right amount or right set of data or information, you
Mm.
know an informed decision actually has got a higher probability of getting success, rather than
True.
an ill-informed decision.
True. Makes sense because in this era, so many things are changing, and you can't take decisions just on your gut feel every now and then. You got to read, research, meet, talk, listen, and then kind of arrive at
Mhm.
it. Makes
Yeah, and
sense.
look, yeah, and the other part also is there's a lot of information overload as well in this area, right?
Yes. Yes.
For everything you've got 10 sets of information, and when you go out, on the Google or some other thing, you may actually see conflicting versions of the same information, and
True.
that information loading is something which is actually a bit different, which is a bit challenging these days, because without proper research you won't know which piece of information is actually correct.
True.
So
I think,
information loading is actually a major challenge these days.
and in our childhoods, we have seen that cartoon film where one elephant is there and four people they have a blindfold on their eyes, and everybody's at one corner of an elephant and touching and taking a feel, and then they perceive their part of the thing, but the elephant is whole. So
Correct.
similarly, I think yes, people are with good intent trying to give information on internet, but it might be their perception. So we got to read and research a lot. I am 100% agreeing with you on this.
Yeah, and
Now,
look, sorry, you go. Sorry.
yeah, yeah, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead,
No, and
go
look, the only other thing which I was talking about perception was, you can actually make perceptions around about anyone or any issue, things on those lines or anything, but building up a perception should not actually hinder with an ability to take a decision, right? So if you actually have got a perception about something, and like, put it this way, if you and me disagree on four things and agree on six, I would say it's worth working together on six things which we agree upon, and we
true,
can leave the next, the other four things which we don't agree on. Everyone can actually have their own individual choices, especially in
true,
a world today where everyone actually has got a good freedom of speech. You can
true,
put your views out, whether it's social media or blogs and things on those lines. So from my perspective, I see that thing as, people should work together on things on which they agree on to, and the things which you don't agree, so be it. Look, you can actually have people agreeing to you on 100% of things, but the things which you agree upon, they should not be an excuse of not working together.
yep,
So that, that's how I feel about perception and decision making.
perfect. Actually, there should be a constructive agreement, agree to agree, and agree to
Yes.
disagree, but still agree.
Yes,
That
correct.
you like red, I like green,
Mm,
period.
mm.
But at least we like colors. Let's
Exactly,
try
exactly correct.
something of that sort. Um, who is uh, your or who are your
Mhm.
source of inspiration in day-to-day life?
See, that's actually a very good question, and it's a bit more, you know, uh, you might get a stock standard answer, but the reality is my father, you know, is actually my inspiration, right? So
Okay.
my father's been my role model, because in my family, when I actually were like we are two kids, me and my younger brother. My
Mm-hmm.
younger brother is like 6 years younger to me. So when I was born, my
Mm-hmm.
father was progressing in his career,
Mm-hmm.
and when my brother was born, the family already has reached the stage where we pretty much had everything. So my brother was the one who actually had, who's always been with the silver spoon in his mouth, and I've seen the family grow. you know I won't call it struggle, because I don't use that word quite often. uh, I'll actually call it. They actually had their own journey, and I was a part of the journey when we were actually, growing up in India. So and so that is where my role model thing was, because I could see the hard work or the perseverance or persistence from my father in pretty much trying to achieve what he actually was, which he wished for. And luckily, like, my family in India, we had a very open communication, right? So in my family, it's like, if there is a 5-year-old and he's correct, he is correct.
He's correct.
So that's been a part of my upbringing pretty much. So that's why, you listen to everyone, do what you feel you should be doing, but you know just because someone is a bit more elder or things on those lines, the decisions were always made on information. They were never made on seniority of a person, right? So that's where, so basically, my father's been a role model for me for quite some time. uh, after that, when you start your adult life, from a like adult working life, you meet a lot of people, right? So, and you learn from them. So there are people who are very good at talking, and you say, oh, look, I could actually, learn from this person how to talk. There's some people who are very, who can put things in a so simplistic manner that you'll say, oh, look, this is the right way to do things. you know so, and then there are people who can work on very complex things and just get it done. So from my perspective, to answer your question, I'd say my dad was my inspiration for a good time. And then it was more like, he's still my inspiration. I'm not saying that he's not anymore my inspiration, but after that, you start learning from your surroundings, people you meet, people whom you live with. Because look, I was with my family till I was 18 years of age. After that, it was the next 20 years which I've had. I actually grew as a person in Melbourne, so I've got my own experiences with people, the lovely Melbourne community, as I say, because, you
Amazing.
know, I say Melbourne people are pretty much the friendliest in the world, the way I've
Yes.
seen it in my life.
Yes.
So, and when I say life, is like in my last 20 years. And, that was pretty much one of the reasons when I decided I would actually stay in this country. Because for me, staying out here or getting a residency was not really a big thing. Big thing was like, it wasn't actually impacting me in any shape and form. I was more than happy to go back after completing my education at the same time, right? So it's more like, it's actually the people who made me, people and the culture, and obviously a sort of a bit more freedom which I had as a person out here, which made me feel, look, I'll actually settle in this place.
Mm, 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 mm. Um, what are like one or two challenges you face, your own challenges,
Mhm,
and you're working on them so
mhm,
as to improve yourself and
mhm,
grow yourself more?
mhm,
What are
mhm.
one or two if you want to share with us?
See, look, I'll be honest. One challenge, which you actually face is basically, English not being your native language. That
Mm,
is, I wouldn't say it's a big challenge, but what
mm,
happens is, when you start in a new place, you learn new things, right?
mm, mm,
So, so, and then when you keep practicing, keep, become keep participating in that space, it is no more a challenge.
mm,
So I'll say, look, uh, you know, English not being my native language was actually a challenge. I won't hide that. It actually, because what actually happened was, in my first, year 1 to year 5 in India, I was actually in a Hindi medium school.
mm,
Then from year 6 to year 12, I was actually in a convent school. So from my perspective, the transition which I had from my year 5 to year 6, going from a Hindi medium school to English medium school, was actually huge.
mm,
Because, you know because of just the way the things were at that time.
mm,
And then when you actually come to a new place, with a different accent, a different, acronyms, different slangs, I'll say, you know, it takes a time to actually learn and adapt.
yeah.
So, and everyone's got their own life cycle. Some people adapt and learn in 1 year. Some people take 10 years. Some people are not able to adapt ever in their life. But that doesn't make anyone right or anyone wrong, right? Everyone's got their own learning cycle.
Yeah.
As long as you actually are doing what you think you should be doing, the place just accepts you. That's what it is.
Mm, mm. how are your now, like we're talking in today's time,
Mhm.
how are your weekdays to a weekend? How are how are
Uh,
days kind of scheduled, or
look,
what are like?
yep.
Because I know
Say,
you do
mhm,
many more things, and
yep.
my interest would be that
Mhm,
if a person of your magnitude can do so
mhm,
many things, how does he do? So
yep.
first point is, what do you do? And then
Yep.
second part is, how do you do?
Cool. All right. So look, there's actually a couple of things, which I actually do. As I said, I actually work in IT projects. Pretty much, I'll say, pretty much a high net worth projects in IT, and they carry a bit of responsibility around in terms of designing them, stakeholder engagement, decision making, things on those lines. That pretty much takes, I'll say, around 45 to 50 hours of my time, because sometimes you're not working but you're still working because you're thinking on those lines, right?
Yep.
So that's one
Yep.
part. Then I actually run a business with my brother.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I'm pretty much more like, you know pretty much taking, sort of a accounting decisions for him, or some other things, combined together. So I do spend like 10-15 hours a week on with him,
Mm-hmm.
on growing that business. And
Mm-hmm.
then actually the advocacy which I do, pretty much for my area,
Mm-hmm.
is a lot more than what it gets seems on the Facebook. Because when you put something on a Facebook, it's just not a post. It's actually a well researched information which you can argue on, which you can debate on. The information then gets put onto a letter to an MP, or letter to a council, or letter to a minister to say, hey, look, this is what is actually happening. What are your views, or what are the solutions moving on, or can I get a response from you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it is also about following these things all the way through. So I won't even talk elections, but from a normal advocacy perspective, I think it takes me I give around 20 hours a week at least, even when there are no elections.
Right.
And look, I'll say, look, be my guest, go to my Facebook, open up the post, see how well researched those things are.
Yep.
And because of my analytical background and logical reasoning, I would say I'm able to quite quickly able to separate information.
Mm.
So all up, I believe I work around 80 hours a week.
Wow.
And
How do
it
you do?
actually has got it actually has got some, what do you say, some disadvantages. One disadvantage is, especially during COVID. Look, you can't actually, like uh put it this way, when I'm actually in the city, I actually do around 10,000 steps a day. So I actually
Oh.
do 10,000 steps a day, which keeps you fit. So especially with COVID, and especially with elections and advocacy and things on those lines, not
Mm.
giving that good, my health, not giving that, that much care of my health that I should be. But again,
Mm.
it's only a matter of another 4-6 weeks, and then I'll get my health sorted out. So look, sometimes you actually have to have a balanced approach, agreed. But
Yes.
sometimes, for some time, you got to miss out on things,
Things.
and you can't get everything in your life. Like when I say life is, you can get everything in your life, but what I'm saying is, when you work on a variety of projects, you got to pick and choose. Some
Right.
days something is becomes a priority, some other days some other things becomes a priority. It could be work, it could be personal life, it could be advocacy.
Sure.
But none of my 2 days are actually same, put it this way. And look, I think I'm actually quite used to it now, and actually I quite enjoy what I do. I actually won't lie. I do work long hours, because I'm not saying long hours. When you put everything onto like this into a time frame, it becomes long hours, right?
Yep. Yep.
The
Yep.
reality is we only have got 24 hours in a day, right? If it would have been 36 hours, I would have not complained,
Mm.
right? So, but that is actually the reality, that that once you actually have done, you got to take you got to make choices in terms of, what you really want to persist, what do you want to follow, and what do you want to push forward with.
Mm.
And as I said, no 2 days of mine are actually same. So
Mm.
I'm actually, I just work my way the way the life comes to me,
Mm-hmm.
and I just accept it with open hands.
Mm.
And I'll say, luckily, I do happen to be in the right places, right time. I won't say, I believe I'm lucky, right? From a lot
Mm.
of different perspectives, I'll be honest. But
Mhm.
there's a lot of hard work as well, which goes so that the nature favors you.
Mm. Mm. Um, in life so far, do you regret something and why?
Good question. Look, uh, from my perspective, it's like I've actually got a actually I've got a very short term memory in terms of failures, right? So so I don't I learn from things and make it next. So from a regret perspective, not from a professional life perspective. As I said, I've never actually had a failed IT project, so I'm pretty happy with how the life is treating me. And I've been open, right? I'm actually a grounded person. I do what I think I should be doing. And once I've made my decision, I follow that path and I persist that path. So from a regret perspective, look, the only regret which I've got is I've actually had a bunch of schoolmates back in
Hmm,
India, but that time we used to be in Orkut, and Orkut social media moved into Facebook,
hmm,
and in
hmm,
that transition, I lost four or five of my mates,
hmm,
who were really close to me, right? So that's the only regret from a friendship perspective which I've got looking up.
hmm,
If they would be around me, look, I actually have searched for them, but I
hmm.
haven't been able to find them. Look, so apart from that regret, I think I'm actually happy the way I am.
I can 100% correlate to what you say. Personally, me as well. One
Mm,
of our schoolmates,
mm,
brilliant boy.
mm,
I think he ranked first in 10th grade out of a surprise.
mm.
And he, after schools and college, and I think when we got into our adult life, kind of he's disappeared. But we all
Okay.
know the
Mm.
schoolmates that he's in US. And me
Okay. Yep.
personally attempted twice or thrice through
Mm,
Facebook,
mm,
whatever we knew, but still today there's a disconnect, and there
mm,
are around 3 or 4 schoolmates who are in US.
mm.
So we've kind of conversed with them over WhatsApp that try and find this chap, because jolly good fellow, brilliant character, he'll always add value. So I
Yep.
can relate what you're saying.
And look, they are part of your early life, right? So those are the people whom you have grown with, right? So as you said, look, you don't get everything in the world, but there's no harm in trying. One day I think I'll actually find him. Yep.
Yeah, we played
The,
cricket in his building. There was a
sorry,
good
come again.
town. We played cricket in his building.
Ah, okay.
Anyways,
Yep.
from here onwards, uh, what is that change in your path that you've made a mention?
Mm.
But we won't go much into the detailing. We'll keep
Yep.
that detailed discussion for the next episode.
Yep.
But what is that diversion or that addition that you are bringing into your portfolio? Yeah, a
Yep.
little snippet or a little hint about that.
Yep. Look, I think it's a I'll actually relate it to pretty much in it's actually a story of a lot of first generation migrants like myself and yourself. That there's a
Mhm,
period of learning, there's a
mhm,
period of struggle or adventure, whatever you call it. There's are some hard times.
mhm,
Then you grow up as a person.
mhm,
Then you get localized to the area. You learn
mhm.
some skills, you become a bit more valuable. And then there comes a part when you say, look, this place has given me so much that it's your time now to give it back.
You know, yeah.
So I'm actually on to, you know, a journey of my own self where I actually, I I'm actually at a stage where I'm actually trying to give it back to the community.
Mhm,
Having said that, I do plan to be a full-time philanthropist pretty much when I'm actually around 50. So I've got another, 12, 13 years to go.
mhm,
But personally, from my life perspective, I do
mhm.
plan to be 100% philanthropist, totally onto social service, 100%, not
Amazing,
earning money to put in the pocket after the age of 50. So
amazing.
that's my end goal. But from now till that end goal, there's another 12 years which I've got,
Hmm,
for which, there are things which I'm trying to solve. I'll put it
hmm,
this way, just to be short in that scenario.
hmm, hmm, hmm. One last message
Mm,
to people out there. They might
mm,
be your well wishers, they might be your
mm,
supporters, or they might
mm.
be the other side of the fence as well.
Yep.
Uh, your message to them.
Look, I'll give like a couple of messages, right?
Hmm,
Because it's very hard to actually put your 20 years into a message. Just
mm,
two, three messages which I'll give. The first thing is, you know, if we disagree on three and agree on seven, let's work together on the seven we agree with. That's
mm,
the first message.
mm,
The second message is we need to persist on things which we believe in, right?
mm,
It could be anything. It could be advocating for the local area, your own business, your own job. We need to persist through with things, because the problem which we actually have got in pretty much Tarnet or Wyndham is we have got a lot of seasonal advocates. So
mm.
people who come, do a bit of a brand building, social profiling, and then they vanish after elections. There are very few people who are actually who stay true to the cause which they believe in.
Mm, mm,
So I would actually ask people to be a bit more persistent in what they're trying to do. If they are talking about community, or about you know uh, about doing something, because what happens is there's a lot of people who start believing in you, and there's no you know it's actually very bad to leave someone believing in you and then you run from what you were supposed to do.
so true.
So I'll say persistent, and then look, the other part is you just need to be honest and open.
Mm,
So as long as you're actually honest and open,
mm,
the thing is there's only one truth, and there could
mm,
be a thousand lies.
mm.
If you're speaking truth, you only have to do one thing,
Correct.
on the dot, just talk about truth and be whom you are. If you're
Mm,
actually talking lies, you have to tell a lie to bloody everyone.
mm.
So, and at the end of the day, you are the best judge of your own self.
Correct.
That's the other key part. You can lie to everyone in the world. You can, fabricate whatever you want to fabricate in the world. But when you look onto the mirror in the morning, that person who is looking bad at you, you can't lie from that person. So
True.
just be honest. And this place is like we should be, like we're actually fortunate to be living in Melbourne, put it this way. Not saying living in India would have been different, but all I'm saying is we should value the place where we live in,
Yeah.
and we should contribute as much as back to the community, because this is our community right now. So
Yes.
because the time when I came here, there were not that much multicultural, what do you say, community or population, things on those lines, and people actually accepted me with open hands. So I've got all the love, for the people who
Mm.
actually accepted me with open hands. So that's my message. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. That's a message, or series of message for constructive inclusion. Work with everybody. Let everybody work with you, but for the betterment of community and place where we are. And actually,
Correct.
we are
Because
in Melbourne.
true.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Arnav, for your time and pearls of wisdom that you have shared with us, your journey, and appreciate once again. And we will see you soon, and we'll take this conversation series further so as to add a little more value to what you are doing and the
Yep.
people for whom you are doing, and let anybody and everybody get benefited. And just open out a message to people who are viewing today or tomorrow. We'll
Mm.
be putting contact details for Arnav Bhai. So if you have some issues or some suggestions or some expectations or some message to give or pass, he will be available on those contact points, and you can ask for help, and I'm pretty sure he will help. So with that note, I'm thanking you once again, Arnav Bhai, and all our viewers today and tomorrow to come, and we're concluding this. You have a lovely weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Appreciate it.